وأن الله ربي وربكم فاعبدوه هذا صراط مستقيم وإن الله ربي وربكم فاعبدوه هذا صراط مستقيم.
ما يستثنى من الكفر القولي, what is exempted from the blasphemous expressions. Exempted means excused. Exempted from the blasphemous expressions is the case of the slip of the tongue. That is, to say anything of that type, to say any type of blasphemy without will. Rather, it ran on one's tongue while he did not intend to say it at all. That's clear. Remember that similar to that is what comes out like a habitual swear. What comes off the tongue like a habitual swear. The habitual swear is the swear that does not have a judgment linked to it. When you say, Wallahi, I will do such and such, Wallahi, I will not do such and such, then you swore to do it or not do it. And there's a judgment there. There's a judgment linked to that. If you break your swear. Unless you said that swear in the habitual way where you are not actually intending to bind yourself to something. The point of the swear is to bind yourself to something. So you say, Wallahi, I will, Wallahi, I won't. Well, sometimes a person says it just to be emphatic. And then it comes off of the tongue like a habit. And he's not intending to bind himself to anything. So then this swear does not have a judgment with it. The judgment of swearing to something. That's called lahu. Lahu means voided. So whatever's like that has the judgment of the slip of the tongue. So what's like that is sometimes some profanity or saying a song that's on your mind or some line of poetry. So exempted from the blasphemous expressions is the case of the slip of the tongue. That is, to say anything of that type without will. Rather, it ran on one's tongue while he did not intend to say it at all. Now, I didn't say that those things are a slip of the tongue. I said they have the same judgment. Their judgment is the judgment of the slip of the tongue. So you could say they are like the slip of the tongue. The case of the absence of mind, the lack of a conscious mind, he's insane, or he's asleep. Intoxication doesn't amount to insanity. So he might not be insane if he has that. So then he'll be accountable for whatever he does. Sometimes, though, the drunk person who got drunk in a haram way, that means he knew it would make him drunk and he drunk it. If he divorced his wife, if he went crazy and divorced his wife, then she's divorced. That's out of strictness on his case. But the one who's insane is not accountable. The case of compulsion. Thus, whoever utters blasphemy with his tongue under the threat of death or the like, while his heart is tranquil with faith, does not blaspheme because he was compelled or forced or coerced. The Exalted said, من كفر بالله من بعد إيمانه إلا من أكره وقلبه مطمئن بالإيمان. ولكن من شرح بالكفر صدرا فعليهم غضب من الله. Whoever disbelieves in Allah after having faith blasphemes, except the one who was compelled while his heart was firm with faith, compelled by death threat. However, whoever blasphemes in Allah after belief while his heart was delighted with blasphemy, he deserves the punishment of Allah. فَعَلَيْهِمْ غَضَبٌ مِّنَ اللَّهِ. They have the ghadab of Allah on them. Ghadab literally means anger. فَعَلَيْهِمْ غَضَبٌ مِّنَ اللَّهِ. The ghadab is Allah's will to punish. The case of conveying another's blasphemy. Thus, whoever conveys the blasphemy of another without accepting it does not blaspheme. So here Shaykh is repeating what he has said previously. If you remember, before this chapter that we just started now, here's the heading, what is exempted from the blasphemous expressions. The previous chapter, he said that the one who conveys another person's blasphemy does not blaspheme if he did that without deeming it good, by saying so-and-so said such and such. If someone delays the words, he said, to the end of the statement, it is a condition that he already intended mentioning the citation after the statement. Yani before he said it, he intended to delay it. Then we didn't explain that then because I told you it's going to come back. So here it is, it came back. Among the benefits of studying a book is knowing what's in it and where that is. The case of conveying another's blasphemy. Thus, whoever conveys the blasphemy of another without accepting it does not blaspheme. Like he said already. Our reference for excluding the case of citing another's blasphemy is the saying of Allah the Exalted, وَقَالَتِ الْيَهُودُ عُزَيْرٌ ابْنُ اللَّهِ وَقَالَتِ النَّصَارَى الْمَسِيحُ ابْنُ اللَّهِ. The Jews said, Ezra is the son of Allah, and the Christians said, the Masih is the son of Allah. So their saying was cited. Also, وَقَالَتِ الْيَهُودُ يَدُ اللَّهِ مَغْلُولَةٌ. The Jews said, Allah is stingy. وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. Here, this word also, that's added in the English, and there is nothing there in the Arabic. So what the Shaykh did was he just cited two ayahs back to back. Furthermore, the citation that protects the citer of blasphemy, the citation that protects the citer of blasphemy would either be at the beginning of the statement that he cites from the one who spoke the blasphemy, or after his mentioning that word while previously intending to produce the citation before saying the word of blasphemy. So there the Shaykh repeated himself. And that's Shaykh's style. Shaykh has, among other things, two styles. One is repetition, and one is simplicity. Had the Shaykh wanted to speak in a way that no one could understand him, and he's absolutely correct, yani, or very few people, many people won't understand him, he would have been able to. So if he said the Masih is the son of God is the saying of the Christians, or the Christians said that, it is a citation that prevents blasphemy from the citer. And that's the sunnah of the Prophet too, alayhi salatu wasalam, to repeat. Sometimes he repeat himself 3 times. And the Prophet ﷺ would also speak clearly, not swiftly. Yani, he would elaborate. The case of the person having a misunderstanding of the sacred law while trying to arrive at the truth. So this is a very important mas'ala to understand properly because it's a little bit intricate. The one with a misunderstanding does not blaspheme unless his misunderstanding was in reference to the definite matters. For then he is not excused. Like the misconception of those who said that the world is beginningless, such as Ibn Taymiyyah. So, the world being beginningless is against a definitive matter. Yani, it's against a fundamental. So, when you're just teaching a person obligatory knowledge, you're going to teach him only Allah is eternal. Everything else is created. So, if someone arrives at what's contrary to that based on some inference and effort and premise, he's still committing blasphemy. So, for example, Ibn Taymiyyah said the hadith, كان الله ولم يكن قبله شيء, أو كما قال, Allah was and there was nothing before him. He said, this doesn't negate that there was something with him. How did that slip him? That's exactly as the meaning of shirk. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. And then from there, he went to say that there's eternal kind of creation, not the thing itself. That's how he thought he slipped the shirk. By saying it's not the thing itself that's eternal, it's the kind. There was always another one. That's kufr. Just so that he could say Allah is over the arsh. As for the example of who does not blaspheme amongst whoever misinterpreted, yani, it's a case of someone who misunderstood and he didn't commit kufr. That is like the misinterpretation of those who withheld the zakah during the era of Abu Bakr, claiming that zakah was obligatory only during the lifetime of the Messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They said this because his supplication for them when they pay zakah would be mercy and tranquility for them. And that was cut off by his death. Yani, all of that, what's this words here? They said this because his supplication for them when they pay zakah would be mercy and tranquility for them, and that was cut off by his death. The companions did not charge them with blasphemy for that because those people understood from the saying of the exalted, خُذْ مِنْ أَمْوَالِهِمْ صَدَقَةً تُطَهِّرُهُمْ وَتُزَكِّيهِمْ بِهَا وَصَلِّ عَلَيْهِمْ إِنَّ صَلَاتَكَ سَكَنٌ لَهُمْ, which means take a charity from their money that purifies them, O Muhammad, and make supplication for them when they pay you. Not they paying the Prophet, yani, when they pay it, when they hand over their monies to you as zakah payment, surely your supplication is a mercy for them. Sakanul lahum is tranquility for them. Those people understood from this ayah that the meaning is, O Muhammad, take their zakah from them so that when they pay it, it would be mercy for them, and that this would not happen after his death. Thus, it is not obligatory on them to pay it because he died and he was the one ordered to take it from them. And so they're saying, you want this money, Abu Bakr, you're going to have to come and get it. They did not understand that the ruling was general for during his life and after his death. The only reason Abu Bakr fought them, so that's like the answer to a question. Why did Abu Bakr fight them then if they didn't commit kufr? The only reason Abu Bakr fought them, like he fought the apostates who followed Musaylimah al-Kadhab in his claim of prophethood, was because he was unable to take it from them forcefully without fighting. And he couldn't leave them like that also. Those are his choices: fight them or leave them. That is because they were a mobilized force, so he was forced into the fight. Likewise is the case of those who interpreted the saying of Allah the Exalted, فَهَلْ أَنْتُمْ مُنْتَهُونَ. Are you going to stop drinking? They interpreted it to be giving a choice rather than as a prohibition from drinking wine. So they drank it because it came in the form of a question. So they didn't understand the prohibition. Omar did not judge them as blasphemers. Rather, he said, whip them 80 times each. Then, if they return to deeming it lawful, execute them. This is narrated by Ibn Abi Shaybah. Yani, not only did they not understand the prohibition in the ayah, they also didn't know that the Muslims deemed it prohibited because it used to be halal. The companions only charged with blasphemy those who apostatized from Islam for their believing in Musaylimah al-Kadhab, the one who claimed prophethood. So they're fighting those who misinterpreted the myth, those who misinterpreted the withholding of the zakah in this way was for taking the obligatory right on their money, not for blasphemy. That is like fighting the unjust rebels, like what Ali did. They are not fought for blasphemy, rather they are fought to bring them back to the obedience of the Caliph. This is like those whom our master Ali fought in the three conflicts. The conflict of Al-Jamal, the conflict of Siffin with Muawiyah, and the conflict of An-Nahrawan with the Khawarij. However, among the Khawarij, there is a group that are actually blasphemers, and they have their own judgment. So he's saying, Abu Bakr fought those who withheld the zakah like he fought the apostates. So yes, he fought them both, but he fought one group for blasphemy and he fought another group for crushing a rebellion. And that's like what happened with Ali. He had to fight Muslims. He fought people not for blasphemy. And he was engaged in three conflicts: the conflict of Al-Jamal, the conflict of Siffin, and the conflict of An-Nahrawan. So none of them were kuffar, all of them were Muslims, the Shaykh says. However, among the Khawarij, though, in the conflict of Nahrawan, there is a group that are actually blasphemers. So they have their own judgment. Hafiz Abu Zur'ah al-Iraqi said in his book An-Nukat, our Shaykh al-Bulqini said, it is necessary to say, without a misunderstanding, that saves them from blasphemy, yani without a ta'wil. Let's put, yani, without a ta'wil. That word ta'wil is broad. without a misunderstanding that saves them from blasphemy, in order to exclude the transgressors, like those who fought Ali and those who didn't pay the zakah, and the Khawarij, and to exclude the Khawarij, those who legitimize the blood and money of the people of justice while believing in the prohibition of their own blood being lawful for the people of justice. What's he saying here? He's saying, Al-Bulqini said, some of the Khawarij are not kuffar. You have to say some of the Khawarij are kuffar, though. Some of them. So he says, Al-Bulqini said, it is necessary to say without a ta'wil, so to exclude the transgressors and the Khawarij. He says, the Khawarij who legitimize the blood and money of the people of justice while believing in the prohibition of their own blood being lawful for the people of justice, as well as to exclude those who denied the obligation of the zakah on them after the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam by a plausible misconception. This means that their misinterpretation does not demand of us that we charge them with blasphemy. Bita'wil. This is the judgment because the companions, may Allah accept their deeds, did not charge them with blasphemy. This is a reference from the documents of the school concerning the case of misinterpreting the text. So what did Shaykh say here? This is a reference from the documents of the school. That's an important statement here, because this statement includes the meaning that the madhab is not just what Ash-Shafi'i said only, but it is a collaborative effort. Among the documents of the school about the case of misunderstanding the religious text and the case of citing blasphemy is the saying of Shamsuddin Ar-Ramli in his explanation of Minhaj al-Talibin by An-Nawawi, in the beginning of the Book of Apostasy. In his explanation of An-Nawawi's saying, or An-Nawawi's statement, apostasy is cutting off Islam with an intention or saying of blasphemy. That's what An-Nawawi said. And several have copied that statement of An-Nawawi. He says, الردة قطع الإسلام بنية أو قول كفر. And Nawawi said, apostasy is cutting off Islam with an intention or saying of blasphemy. Really quick though. So that statement of An-Nawawi, does anything stick out to you? Does something occur to you? I'll read a statement one more time. He says, apostasy is cutting off Islam with an intention or saying of blasphemy. Anything stick out to you in that statement of An-Nawawi? He said with an intention. That's one thing. That's true. Because we know, like, why does that stick out to you? Because apostasy doesn't require an intention, right? Is that why that sticks out to you? Yeah. So, though it's true that you could intend something and then commit blasphemy, apostasy, but you could also commit apostasy without intending. And another thing maybe that might stick out for you is intending is from the heart and saying is from the tongue. Where's the action? Looks like the category is missing there. That doesn't mean he missed it, because we need to see his whole statement. It might be in there somewhere, but just what's here, it's not there. So why those things stuck out to you? Because Shaykh Abdullah instilled in you the traces of meticulousness. That's from the tahqiq of Shaykh Abdullah, rahimahullah ta'ala, his accuracy that he taught us. So there is no effect from the slip of the tongue, or compulsion, or misunderstanding. He says ijtihad and citing blasphemy. So that's a document from the madhab, one of the shuruh of An-Nawawi's book, one of the explanations of An-Nawawi's book. And also, Sheikh says, among the documents of the school about this case is this saying of Shamsuddin Ar-Ramli, and also another one is the saying of the commentator, that is the author of the commentary of the explanation of Al-Minhaj, of Minhaj al-Talibin. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about a book inside of a book inside of a book. May Allah raise the status of the nation of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So you have a matn, that's the original book. That's a Nawawi's book. Just the text that needs to be explained. Then you have the sharh. So that's the explanation that's now encompassing a Nawawi's book. And then you have the commentary, the footnotes, the footnotes, that's basically the explanation of the explanation. So you're talking about a massive book here. So, and the saying of the commentator, that is the author of the commentary of the explanation, the commentary of the explanation of Minhaj al-Talibin. Who's that? Nuruddin Ali Ash-Shabramallisi, who died in the year 1087 after the Hijrah. So a few hundred years ago. Concerning Ar-Ramli's statement, wajtihad, misunderstanding. So Ar-Ramli's statement. So Ar-Ramli was explaining An-Nawawi. In the process of explaining An-Nawawi, Ar-Ramli used the word ijtihad. So the commentator wants to explain the explanation. So concerning when Ar-Ramli said ijtihad, misunderstanding, he explained, he clarified. Meaning, not absolutely, as is clear from what will be presented about the likes of the blasphemy of those who say that the world is eternal. Despite that, it is based on deduction and inference. So he's just saying what we already learned at the beginning of the chapter. Not absolutely. Sometimes one's misunderstanding will not save him from blasphemy when his misunderstanding is against the fundamentals or what's definitive. Said the other commentator on the explanation of Ar-Ramli. So this is two different commentaries on Ramli's explanation of An-Nawawi's book. So you're keeping track of the names of scholars and you're keeping track of the names of their books. So you have that somewhere. And one of your notebooks somewhere, like you're just going to have, let's say, the inside cover of one of your notebooks, you're going to have right there for yourself an index of scholars' names and then books that they wrote. Whenever you learn a new one, you're going to go to that notebook and put that there, and you document that for yourself. And then one day, that's going to be in your mind. It's not just going to be there. You're going to look there and you're going to, mashallah, you knew that. Or one day, you're going to open it and see it, and then you remember you wrote it, and then you'll never forget it, inshallah. Said the other commentator on the explanation of Al-Ramli, Ahmed ibn Abdul Razzaq, who is famous as Al-Maghribi Al-Rashidi, who died in the year 1096. When he said misunderstanding, ijtihad, and notice he's using the word ijtihad, that is in reference to what does not have definitive evidence against his misunderstanding, as proven by the blasphemy of the likes of those who say the world is eternal, even though it was by inference. So, if you ever need to explain this case to someone, of course you want to keep it simple. You're going to try to say it with few words, but clearly. And an example you want to go to is the example the scholars have repeated for us here 3 times now. Shaykh once, and then these 2 commentators on Ar-Ramli, they all gave this example. That, like those who said the world is eternal, they arrived at it by some inference. We're still going to judge them as kuffar. But you have other examples too, like those who liken Allah to the creation, same thing. From here, it is known that not every person who has a misunderstanding is saved from blasphemy by his misunderstanding. So let the student of knowledge always remember the aforementioned saying of Al-Rashidi when he said, in reference to what does not have definitive evidence, or concerning what does not have definitive evidence. Yani, keep that phrase in mind, concerning what does not have definitive evidence. This means one should always recall this phrase in his heart, because it is important. Misunderstanding in the face of definitive evidence does not prevent the charge of blasphemy against the one who misunderstood. What we said about the Khawarij, excluding some of them from being among those who are charged with blasphemy, is because of the confirmation of what dictates charging some of them with blasphemy. Yani, Shaykh is saying, we didn't say none of them are kuffar. As supported by the saying of some companions who narrated the hadiths about the Khawarij. You know, we have to say some of them are kuffar because there's hadiths about them. As for what was narrated from our master Ali, that he said, our brothers have transgressed against us, there is no evidence in it to judge all of them with Islam, because its chain of narration was not confirmed from Ali. And the Hafiz and Mujtahid Ibn Jarir al-Tabari and others were certain about charging them with blasphemy. Yani, they said, without qualification, the Khawarij are kuffar. This is taken to be in reference to the different cases of the Khawarij, that some of them reached the level of blasphemy and others did not. This case has been expressed by some as ijtihad, and some have expressed it as ta'wil. Among those who used the term ta'wil is the Hafiz Faqih and Shafi'i Sirajuddin al-Bulqini, the one whom the author of Al-Qamus referred to as the savant of the world. Some of the explainers of Minhaj al-Talibin have expressed it as ijtihad. And both expressions, whether you want to say ijtihad or ta'wil, must be properly restricted. From here, it is known that not everyone who misunderstands is protected from blasphemy by his misunderstanding. So let no thinker think that that is absolute, because generalizing in that is a disbanding of and exiting from the religion. Do you not see that many of those who are attributed to Islam, who busied themselves with philosophy, went out of the religion for their belief that the world is eternal, out of their ijtihad? Despite that, the Muslims have agreed on charging them with blasphemy, as mentioned by the Muhaddith and Faqih Badruddin Az-Zarkashi in the explanation of Jam'u al-Jawami'. He said, after mentioning the two groups of philosophers, the group who claim that the world is eternal by its substance and its form, and the group who claim that the world is eternal by its type, i.e., its kind only. Don't dwell on those too much. Anyone who said something is eternal other than Allah, he commits kufr. If all those details there are not clear, you don't have to exert yourself hard there. As long as you know that anything other than Allah, claiming that it's eternal, is kufr. It's already going to be absurd to say a creation is eternal. So they have some details they go into. What did Az-Zarkashi say? The Muslims have agreed on deeming them misguided and charging them with blasphemy. Likewise is the case of the Murji'ah, those who said sins are not harmful while having belief, just as good deeds are not beneficial while having blasphemy. They made a comparison. That's blasphemy, though. They only said that out of ijtihad and ta'wil of some texts outside of their contexts. Yani, misinterpreting some texts. They said that because they misinterpreted some texts. وَهَلْ نُجَازِي إِلَّا الْكَفُورِ. Will we pay anyone but the blasphemer? They said, see, not the believer gets harmed. But they were not excused. The Prophet made takfir on them. Sinfani min ummati laysa lahuma nasibun fil Islam al-qadariyatu wal-murji'ah. Two groups from my nation have no share in Islam. Destiny deniers and the remitters, the exonerators, those who exonerate every Muslim from punishment. Likewise, groups other than them went astray while they are attributed to Islam. Their deviance was through ijtihad and ta'wil. We ask Allah for steadfastness upon the truth. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. Allah knows best. We'll stop there. What an excellent book is this book. MashaAllah. It's an honor from Allah Ta'ala that He enabled us to take this book at this level. When I say this level, I mean so close to its author. This is a classical work here. Anyone who has any taste of Ahlul Sunnah can see that. Maybe inshallah, some people in some generations to come, they'll be teaching As-Sirat Al-Mustaqim, like how we learned some books of some ulama who lived a few hundred years ago. Perhaps Shaykh Abdullah is the Shaykh of the later generations. He's the Imam of the later generations, inshallah.